A world on fire, global conflict at a tipping point. The world is a volatile and dangerous place. This is not exactly breaking news. Humans are, let's face it, pretty good at conflict, but even by our impressive standards, recent years have been exceptional in all the wrong ways. We're witnessing a global surge in political violence that is leaving a trail of death and suffering in its wake. From the smoldering ruins of Gaza to the ravaged landscapes of Ukraine, the year 2024 has been a brutal testament to humanity's capacity for self-destruction. The numbers paint a grim picture. According to recent reports, political violence has skyrocketed by a staggering 25% compared to the previous year. That's like saying, congratulations, you've officially entered the thunderdome of global instability. This surge in violence has resulted in a horrifying 37% increase in fatalities, with nearly 200,000 souls lost in the maelstrom. That's 200,000 too many, in case you were wondering. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. These are real lives extinguished, families torn apart, and futures stolen. The human cost of this global crisis is immeasurable, and the international community seems woefully ill-equipped to stem the bleeding. We're facing a perfect storm of interconnected crises fueled by political instability, economic inequality, and the ever-looming specter of climate change. The world is quite literally on fire, and we're all standing around like a bunch of idiots arguing over who left the stove on. So, how did we get here? It's tempting to point fingers at specific events or actors, but the truth is far more complex. The seeds of this global conflagration were sown long ago, fertilized by decades of short-sighted policies, geopolitical maneuvering, and a collective failure to address the root causes of conflict. The year 2024 simply ripped the lid off a pressure cooker that had been simmering for far too long. It exposed the fragility of the international order, the limitations of traditional diplomacy, and the urgent need for a new approach to conflict resolution. We live in an interconnected world where the consequences of conflict in one corner of the globe can ripple outward, destabilizing entire regions and triggering chain reactions that are difficult, if not impossible, to control. The interconnectedness of the modern world means that the suffering in Gaza resonates in Ukraine, the chaos in Sudan exacerbates tensions in the Sahel, and the flames of conflict, once ignited, can quickly spread across borders, consuming everything in their path. We are all connected, whether we like it or not, and the sooner we recognize this fundamental truth, the better equipped we will be to confront the challenges that lie ahead. Gaza, a tiny strip of land perched precariously on the Mediterranean coast, has become a tragic symbol of the human cost of this global conflict surge. Trapped in a seemingly endless cycle of violence, the people of Gaza have endured unimaginable suffering, their lives held hostage to a geopolitical chess match that seems to have no end in sight. With a staggering 81% of its population directly impacted by conflict, Gaza has become a byword for humanitarian catastrophe. The statistics are nothing short of horrifying. Since October 2023, an estimated 40,000 to 50,000 people have lost their lives in the ongoing violence, and a staggering 1.9 million have been displaced from their homes. Imagine the entire population of Nebraska suddenly homeless, desperate, and facing an uncertain future. That's the reality in Gaza today. The international community has responded with the usual pronouncements of concern and pledges of aid, but the reality on the ground tells a different story. The humanitarian response has been woefully inadequate, hampered by funding shortfalls, political roadblocks, and the sheer scale of the crisis. Gaza is a microcosm of the challenges we face on a global scale. Intractable conflict, displacement on an unprecedented scale, and a humanitarian system struggling to cope with the sheer magnitude of the need. Meanwhile, on the eastern fringes of Europe, the war in Ukraine grinds on, a brutal testament to the enduring power of nationalism, the perils of great power rivalry, and the human cost of a conflict with no end in sight. What began as a regional conflict has morphed into a proxy war, with global powers pouring weapons and resources into the Ukrainian cauldron, fueling a conflict that threatens to spiral out of control. The human toll of the war in Ukraine is staggering. Millions have been displaced from their homes, seeking refuge in neighboring countries or within Ukraine itself. The economic cost of the conflict is equally daunting, with estimates for reconstruction reaching into the hundreds of billions of dollars. The international community has rallied behind Ukraine, providing military and humanitarian aid, but the conflict shows no signs of abating. The war in Ukraine is a stark reminder of the human cost of great power competition, the limits of military intervention, and the urgent need for diplomatic solutions to complex geopolitical challenges. Section 5. Sudan descent into chaos. In Sudan, a nation already grappling with poverty, political instability, and the legacy of past conflicts, the year 2024 brought a new wave of violence that has pushed the country to the brink of collapse. The conflict, which erupted between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces, has unleashed a humanitarian crisis of catastrophic proportions. The numbers are staggering. Over 18,000 people killed, 12 million displaced, and a nation teetering on the precipice of anarchy. The conflict has exacerbated existing tensions, fueling ethnic violence, displacing millions, and shattering what little infrastructure remained after decades of turmoil. The international response has been muted at best, hampered by the complex political dynamics of the region, the lack of access for humanitarian organizations, and the sheer scale of the humanitarian crisis. Section 6. Shadows of War, the rise of non-state actors. Adding another layer of complexity to the already volatile mix is the rise of non-state armed groups. These shadowy actors, operating outside the traditional boundaries of state power, have become increasingly influential in conflict zones around the world, exploiting chaos, profiting from instability, and posing a direct challenge to the existing international order. From the battlefields of Syria to the lawless expanses of the Sahel, non-state armed groups have become a ubiquitous presence in modern conflict, blurring the lines between conventional warfare, terrorism, and organized crime. With an estimated 455 non-state armed groups of humanitarian concern active globally, these groups have become a potent force in shaping the contours of conflict, exacerbating violence, and complicating efforts to find lasting peace. The rise of non-state armed groups presents a unique challenge to the international community. These groups are often highly adaptable, operating across borders, exploiting local grievances, and utilizing sophisticated propaganda and recruitment networks to advance their agendas. Their presence adds another layer of complexity to already volatile situations, making it even more difficult to find lasting solutions to complex political and social problems. Section 7. A burning planet. Climate change fuels the fire. As if political instability, economic inequality, and the proliferation of armed groups weren't enough, the world is also facing the escalating consequences of climate change, from rising sea levels to extreme weather events. The impacts of a warming planet are already being felt around the world, exacerbating existing tensions, fueling resource competition, and creating new drivers of conflict. The link between climate change and conflict is complex and multifaceted. As temperatures rise and rainfall patterns change, competition for scarce resources such as water and arable land is likely to intensify. This competition can exacerbate existing social and political tensions, increasing the risk of violence and instability, particularly in regions already struggling with poverty, inequality, and weak governance. Moreover, climate change is likely to lead to increased displacement as people are forced to flee their homes due to rising sea levels, desertification, or extreme weather events. This mass movement of people can further strain resources, exacerbate social tensions, and create new security challenges both within and between states. Section 8. A House Divided. Geopolitics and the Failure of Diplomacy. Underlying these interconnected challenges is a profound failure of global governance. The institutions designed to prevent conflict and promote cooperation have proven woefully inadequate in the face of 21st century challenges. The UN Security Council, paralyzed by great power rivalry and hamstrung by its own bureaucratic inertia, has become a symbol of international impotence. The rivalry between the United States and China, fueled by economic competition, ideological differences, and strategic mistrust, has cast a long shadow over the international system, undermining multilateralism and fueling proxy conflicts in every corner of the globe. This great power competition, rather than fostering cooperation and stability, has instead created a climate of uncertainty, mistrust, and heightened risk, making it even more difficult to address shared challenges such as climate change, pandemics, and, of course, armed conflict. The failure of diplomacy has left a dangerous vacuum in the international system, one that is quickly being filled by those who see violence as the only viable path to achieving their objectives. Unless we can find a way to bridge the divides that separate us, to rebuild trust, and to forge a new consensus on the rules of the international order, the future looks bleak indeed. Section 9. A Call to Action, Averting Global Catastrophe. So where do we go from here? The challenges we face are daunting, but despair is not an option. We cannot afford to be bystanders in our own destruction. The time for complacency is long past. We need a fundamental shift in our thinking, a recognition that the old ways of doing business are no longer fit for purpose. We need to invest in conflict prevention, to address the root causes of violence, and to create a more just and equitable world. We need to strengthen multilateral institutions, to empower regional organizations, and to find new ways to resolve disputes peacefully. We need to prioritize diplomacy, dialogue and de-escalation over military intervention and the pursuit of narrow self-interest. The task before us is immense, but the stakes could not be higher. The future of humanity hinges on our ability to come together, to transcend our differences, and to build a more peaceful, just and sustainable world. The time for action is now.